Jackie Carroll, Education 210. When I first entered this course, I hoped to become more aware of the current levels of diversity in education. I aimed to learn about the aspects of education that lack diversity and maybe even stimulated oppression. I wanted to understand how these issues had been fixed, and if they were still present, I wanted to discover a way that they could be fixed, especially on a personal level. One concern I had was that I would come off arrogant in class discussions. I was unaware of the lacking diversity in many educational systems and had never even heard of some of the concepts we would be discussing, such as ableism and classism. I simply thought of oppression in terms of race, sometimes regarding religion as a contributing factor, but not as an individual factor. I did not want my peers to relate my lack of knowledge as a contributing factor to the issues. I wanted my peers to know that I was sincerely concerned in the matter, regardless of how informed I was before entering the course. One challenge I was faced with was being open with my peers. Before registering for the course, I knew it was small and discussion-based, something I enjoyed in high school, but had not yet experienced at UMass. In high school, I was close with my friends who I had grown up with, but entering this course, I was faced with the challenge of opening up to a room of strangers about very personal subjects. My hopes were exceeded throughout this semester. I learned about countless forms of oppression through facts and statistics, as well as through stories about personal experiences. I learned about prior and current issues regarding oppression, how some were diminished or eliminated, and how we can act as members of society to help eradicate all forms of oppression. My peers were accepting, and the community standards we developed at the beginning of the course reassured me that I would not be judged. I learned it was okay to be uninformed, and the fact that I was uninformed and wanted to learn more about the issues was positive. Throughout the course, I began raising my hand more, although it was not as frequent as it could have been. However, I was becoming more comfortable with my peers, especially in smaller group discussions where I voiced my thoughts with more confidence. Learning about experiences that differed from my own was truly eye-opening. I have grown up in the same neighborhood my whole life, so most of my friends and I have shared the same major life experiences. There were some individual exceptions, of course, but none that others couldn't understand or relate to in some way. Hearing unique outlooks from other peers, instructors, and guests, both in the classroom and at the panels, led me to truly examine my surroundings. These differing perspectives sparked major reflection regarding myself, my life, and society as a whole. For example, at the ableism panel, Yulia mentioned how she, along with many other people with autism, reject Autism Speaks. I always viewed Autism Speaks as a reputable and beneficial charitable foundation, assuming its sole devotion was helping and complying with those who have autism. Yulia spoke about how she did not want a cure for autism. It is a part of who she is, and she embraces that characteristic. She does not consider autism a disease or a disability, but simply a difference, something that makes her unique. Katya's outlook on society and education also provided me with new understanding. Her story about her educational upbringing in Germany shocked me. I could never imagine a teacher being so impatient with a student who was struggling in a classroom, labeling them as stupid. Katya stressed the term learning difference over learning disability, something I had never heard before. She spoke about how there is not one correct way to learn. Everybody learns best through different methods. Just because somebody learns differently does not make him or her less intelligent. Some methods are just more customary in educational systems. Yulia and Katya provided new insights to me regarding social and learning differences. I learned that the term disability is an exaggeration and offensive. People who learn or interact differently should not be viewed as disabled, but instead as unique. This challenged my belief regarding autism, as I always believed it was a disease in need of a cure or some form of prevention. I thought that those with autism needed social training or relied greatly upon others for help. After hearing Yulia and seeing her interact as an individual, these beliefs I held were not only challenged but eliminated. I also learned that people with learning disabilities are not incompetent or lesser when it comes to school or work. They simply operate differently. People with learning differences are not limited in their abilities and can achieve success greater than many of us who learn by standard teaching. This challenged my idea of what the right way to learn is. Before the panel, I believed that the way a standard classroom operates provided the normal and correct methods of learning. I now understand and agree that everyone learns differently and there is no proper way to learn. Overall, I have come to understand that oppression is present in nearly all aspects of society. Oppression takes place in multiple forms, some visible and some invisible, targeting countless groups or individual members of society. It is our duty as informed citizens to take a stand against oppression and make a change. We must recognize oppression taking place and stand up against it, rather than become so accustomed to oppression that we don't even notice it happening. Another major insight I gained in this semester is the concept of colorblindness. This is the racial ideology that posits the best way possible to end discrimination is by treating individuals as equally as possible, without regard to race, culture, or ethnicity. Through the norms of manners and respect in the community I was raised in, I was taught to act colorblind. However, I've learned that race does matter. Race affects opportunities, perceptions, income, and so much more. By ignoring race, society ignores these issues. Through developing an understanding of being colorblind, I've learned that all members of society must confront differences regarding race and the drawbacks that these differences may impose. I am now aware that it is okay and necessary to talk about race. Being colorblind does not mean that you view everyone as equal by disregarding the color of their skin. It implies that you disregard the individuality of each person, and with that you ignore their racial struggles. The concept of being blind can also be applied to oppression regarding ableism, classism, religion, and so on. Society ignores all types of differences among its members, attempting to convince one another that we are not judgmental and that we are one. However, without talking about our differences, we resultantly fail to talk about our problems. Everyone has his or her own inimitable experience. In order to truly extinguish oppression, we need to accept and embrace our differences. Learning about Christian hegemony also provided a new insight to religious oppression. Before, when I thought of religious oppression, I thought of the Holocaust or the Crusades. I never considered religious oppression in my own society. I trusted that in the United States there really was freedom of religion. However, although different religious practices are not directly neglected by the states, policies provide benefits for Christianity. I had never considered how the calendar revolved around Christianity. Vacation days revolve around Christian holidays, and the new year begins following the birth of Christ. Christian holidays are also supported through societal norms, with an abundance of advertising referencing Christian holidays and promoting sales during these times. Everyone in society is expected to greet one another with a Merry Christmas or a Happy Easter, but Christians are not expected to recognize Yom Kippur. The panel sessions were most helpful for my learning because they provided multiple insights to one broad issue. The panel sessions also consisted almost entirely of personal experiences, which I could relate to in many cases and at least understand through their anecdotes if I had no similar experiences. Hearing people's experience regarding each form of oppression allowed me to see the reality and intensity of the issues. I also find hearing a person talk about his or herself and what they have learned to be most interesting and grasp my attention. This made me recognize that religious oppression is abundant in our society, although it may not be direct. This oppression goes unnoticed the majority of the time, leading to normalization of the issues. The panelists, readings, and classroom discussions all contributed to the discovery of my social identity by providing different information and insight. Hearing from the panelists allowed me to learn about how other people discovered their own social identities, providing tips and methods aiding me on my own. The readings allowed me to gather concrete information and reflect privately. The classroom discussions clarified any confusion I might have had regarding the readings and provided me with more examples and personal anecdotes. Using all of these sources, I was able to discover who I am and where I stand in society. Discovering my identity has provided me with the insight that everyone experiences his or her own privileges as well as disadvantages. There's no perfect or ideal person. However, systems of privilege and disadvantage typically favor the middle and upper class, specifically members who are straight, white, Caucasian, and Christian. Since I fit these characteristics, I find myself to be more privileged than many other members of society. I look back on my experience as positive. However, I am now aware that my privilege exists, and I have a better understanding of the systems that promote oppression. I know that with my privilege comes responsibility. With my newfound knowledge, I believe that I can help make a difference in society and work to raise an awareness and alter these systems in order to provide equal opportunities for all. This course has helped me to further understand the manifestation of oppression in society by highlighting the fact that these issues cannot longer go unnoticed or ignored. The major reason why oppression still occurs is because of lack of awareness. People try to act as though they do not discriminate by avoiding acknowledging differences. Others hide their differences in fear of being an outcast. Oppression manifests itself through fear. People view being different as a negative characteristic. In order to make a change, we must learn to be more comfortable talking about and encouraging our differences. This way, we can find a common ground that promotes both individuality and equality. This course has provided me with material throughout the semester that will undoubtedly have a lasting effect on the choices I make throughout the rest of my life. After I graduate, I will continue to raise awareness regarding oppression within society and promote equality. In my workplace, I will speak up when I see oppression taking place and aim to make the environment open and accepting. In my future family, I will promote the existence and the importance of differences, highlighting individuality as a positive characteristic. Overall, I will continue to be a member of society that is not afraid to speak up and take a stand, refusing to accept the normalcy of oppression and drawing attention to its existence.